The nice thing about Money 2020 is that they're everywhere. There's interesting people, and you have to really work hard because you have to do a bear hunt for David. And of course, you are an interesting guy because you came. You had an e-commerce master in 2004, and then you went to the banking industry, and now you basically say that digital transformation is only finished for 1%, and you became the most successful. You got a reward just.
Yeah, I mean, so 11FS got the consultancy of the year 3 years into kind of what we're doing, which is nice because we beat people like Deloitte and Capco and Capgemini to that.
I get tired. Well, we all know him because of the podcast. I mean, that is the greatest, most fantastic marketing thing with Simon and you who are doing a great thing. Okay, let's talk Money 2020. What are the trends now? You say 1% of digital transformation is finished only.
Yeah, I think major trend is people are stopping talking about it. I think this isn't about talking about innovative things. This is actually about going out there and making this stuff happen. If you look at the banks that are standing up on stage, you look at the fintechs, like people are actually doing stuff now. This isn't sort of backroom conversations. Like people are actually investing in talent. They're investing in creation of new cultures that actually allow these things to go and happen.
Digital transformation has been going on for as long as I can remember, right? I mean, we in Holland we did 15 years ago. We went 1 billion times a year to the bank. Now 20 million. Sure. Okay, and then the digital visits have been increasing. What is different now?
I mean, I think digitized banking has happened for sure. We've essentially seen, the digitization of a whole raft of paper rather than actually sort of anything that is truly digital. Because, for some reason we've now got our paper statements on our internet website, which, if that's what 250 billion pounds of investment gets you to, then this is why we're saying 1% finished, right? It really feels like actually the next dawn is where, both from a technological perspective, but even now from a regulatory perspective, banks are actually allowed to rethink some of those artificial silos that they've got in terms of their back office. So,
give me your most wonderful, admired company. You go, wow, that is really a great bank, and that they're a couple of years ahead, and that's a little bit where we can be inspired by that.
I mean, all of the different banks are at different stages. I'd say like ING are doing a great job. We had Ralph Hammers over here talking about the work that they're doing. I think they're all on a journey. I think the interesting thing is then.
I mean, still, ING is a beautiful, fantastic. Ralph, you're doing a great job, and it's wonderful, and you're admired. But I mean, that is not the future of banking yet. I mean, they're on the road. Who's already there a little bit? Which nice little startup in England? You have a couple of really nice little companies who have a couple of million traction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of them are there. Like I love what the people like Starling and Monzo are doing in the UK, but fundamentally those guys are less than 1% finished in terms of what their journey. And Aaron and Tom and the guys would echo that as well. We're at the lift off right now. Digital is definitely fundamentally changing in terms of the space that we're in. But it's going to be 10 years until we really see how this industry is sort of shaped up. So for me, I'm like people like Klarna, people like, I've got Patrick Collinson on the main stage in a little while, people like Stripe. These are organizations that have took slices of what banking was and made 20 billion pound companies out of it. This is where I think the really interesting thing is happening. If I'm honest with you, like when I look at around in Money 2020, I find back office transformations more exciting than any of the weird stuff that we're seeing on the UX side of things, because this is where banks can actually get to a point where they can really compete.
And that is also really hard. It's not very glamorous. It takes forever. The old stuff needs to keep on working. Hey, there's 6,000 banks in Europe, right, and 20,000 banks worldwide. Yeah. In 10 years, how many are left?
I mean, there'll be more. I think what we're going to get to is a situation where actually I feel like smaller banks with much lower operating costs can actually start serving niches that maybe haven't even been served before. There are huge populations that are just completely excluded from financial services, and not just because they can't get an account, just because nobody actually educates people on actually what banking really is. Nobody knows what APR is. Nobody really understands these terms.
More banks. I mean, we have 10 car companies. We have 3 people who make iPhones. Everything. We have a couple of e-commerce companies, and the rest is being eaten alive. The press. You say we're going to have more than 20,000 banks in 10 years?
I think there'll definitely be more than 20,000 brands for sure. I think the interesting thing is where people like people like ING, people like NatWest can actually start doing multi-brand strategies to actually access these people. Like the problem isn't about whether a bank can serve you or not. It's whether they've got the tone of voice, whether they've got the brand permission, whether you fundamentally trust them as a consumer. And sometimes
trust thing. You think that's the role of the bank, to have a trust relationship and then to basically serve the needs the second?
I don't think it's the role of the banks. I think consumers want to trust the people that they do business with. Increasingly, yes, there have been big banks that have almost rationed access to services like it was something that was a privilege. For me, banking is a right. It's not a privilege. Everybody deserves to have access to good banking.
There's a couple of billion people who really need bank services in a nice and easy, affordable way.
I mean, they do, but this isn't just a financial inclusion play. Like, actually, fundamentally, some of them, nobody's hearts are going to break for these guys, but some of the most underserved people right now are actually not just the underbanked, but, high net worth are served so appallingly right now. But, digital, fundamentally, all it has led to, the digitized banking environment that we're in, is just a homogenized, one-size-fits-nobody approach to banking. The promise of digital was one-to-one relationships using all of the power of the data to actually give people a unique experience. This is not where we're at anymore.
No, we're not there. So you have one other podcast series about the blockchain. You have a fantastic, interesting, and you basically are showing more and more practical cases. What is the role of blockchain, which, as a self-sovereign technology? Do you see anything happening there?
I mean, similar to fintech generally, I think the sort of hype has died down a little bit, and we've got down to practicalities of actually people executing on these things. So, there are organizations both quietly and, some of them a little bit more publicly actually doing things. Yeah. So for me, I think, blockchain, the cycle of that now is where people actually have a real alternative to do things with it, rather than it just being a buzzword for people to get VC money. Yeah.
You worked at Gartner and the hype cycle, so we're basically past the hype, and now it's about practical implication. And then how high will that cycle be in 5 or 10 years? Will it be an important part of that rejuvenating of the back office of banks?
Yeah, I think it's not going to be the only thing. There was a period where blockchain was, DLT generally was being put down as the panacea to fix all illnesses, but fundamentally
we're past that. But I mean, how important will it be now after the hype? How important will that part be, the blockchain?
I think with any element of technology, I think it's only ever providing a slice. Everything that we're actually seeing with cloud services and the creation of, fully native core banking systems that actually take advantage of cloud, I think is probably going to be way more impactful in the near term than DLT will be. You start looking at what things like machine learning and artificial intelligence can actually start doing.
Way more important than blockchain?
Way more important at this stage, for sure, because, we're in an industry that's only catching 1% of frauds with AML, so actually being in a situation where we can start using even rudimentary AI to start capturing much more of that can fundamentally change the frauds landscape in the back office of banks.
And will there be new banks which are much more redesigned around the blockchain so that you can really do it in a fundamental different way? Because we know that if you have normal banks, you put blockchain on top of it, like, how do you say that? Something on a pig?
Lipstick on a pig. Yeah.
Lipstick on a pig. But, I mean, are there already signs of new companies which do it a new way, which are coming out of these thousands and thousands and thousands of little fintech startups which use blockchain for just about anything?
I mean, there definitely is, but I don't think the question is whether using it, it's whether anybody cares. And from my perspective, like, my mum is never going to care about you using blockchain to do a thing. Like, she doesn't care. Similar to open banking, nobody cares that the banks are exposing APIs mandated to do it for open banking or PSD2 guys. It's about what do you do with it? What service do you provide to customers to actually make them care? So,
it's behind the ceiling and nobody cares about it. Okay, last thing about FS11, right? I mean, we all know you about the podcast, but how many consultants, and you win prizes, but how many consultants are behind FS11?
I mean, we don't like consultants generally. I'm not gonna lie to you that it's a dirty word that basically means PowerPoint at the end of a thing.
Excuse me.
But in terms of people at the company, there's just over 150 people now. So we're out building brand new core banking systems, brand new greenfield challenges all over the world. We're doing it in Hong Kong, in South Africa, in the US, in the UK. So I mean, we're just having a lot of fun. Like, we really find if you pull together talented people who are really passionate about what they do, I mean, really good things happen.
Yeah. So 150 people all over the place. You're working in huge companies. To make any kind of change is already, you need staying power and you need a bunch of people. So with 150 people, you cannot do a lot. You do mostly with that podcast. But what do you do for clients? What kind of clients and what kind of phase in the transformation process are you the best?
I mean, it isn't that you can't do a lot. It's fundamentally the advancements of technology is that digital is a small team sport. What we can achieve with 15 people would have usually have took a big SI 5,000 people to put on the ground, because you're in a situation where your business model is fundamentally different. You know, if you're a large consultancy who's incentivized by time and materials, everything takes a lot of time and a lot of materials, right? From our perspective, actually, we work with clients to ensure that we focus on what their outcome is. This isn't about some output that's some PowerPoint or an integration thing that they don't actually need. This is about fundamentally fixing problems for people. So we're building brand new greenfield challenger banks in Hong Kong, in South Africa, in the UK, in the US.
Holland?
Not yet. Actually, no. But
come on, Mark. Where are you? Mr. Hammers.
Like from my perspective, I can get to Amsterdam quicker than I can get to London for where I'm living. So
where are you living?
Norwich, so east coast of England.
Yes. So Holland is very, very close by, and we could also use some radical digital transformation. So guys, if you're listening, FS11, listen first to the podcast. If you like what you see, then basically give him a call. He's always on his way to South Africa, stopping in Amsterdam.
Skip Paul, I'm always here.
Thanks, appreciate it.
No problem.